Hello everyone, welcome back to the dulcet tones of my voice, which I can now use thanks to this microphone. So, today we're going to be looking at the material for analysis in chapter 22 of the Dressmaker, and again we'll be centering our analysis on comparison with the Crucible. So, first let's start off with a quick summary of chapter 22. So we see that Beulah is up to her old antics again. She's going around gossiping about people, and the women visit Una Pleasance at the Pettyman residence because they want to let her know what they're expecting of her as a seamstress. We also see Gertrude giving birth to Felicity Joy in this chapter. So there's actually not that much material for comparison here, but let's get back into it. Okay, so chapter 22, we start off on the back patio, formerly the porch, at the Beaumont residence, and that's on page 210, and it just highlights to us the pretentiousness of the people who live there. And evidently William is not vibing with that pretentiousness. And we see that he's kind of the practical one out of the Beaumont family from the very start, because he's the only one who really shows any real concern for their economic situation. So on page 211, we see that he refilled his glass, banged his pipe against the wooden armrest, and reached for his tobacco. So he's clearly dealing with his marriage and the stress of dealing with the finances of the Beaumonts. By turning to downers. Now, what's really interesting is that neither him nor Gertrude, they really don't engage with each other. So William is muttering to himself as he smokes and drinks, while Gertrude is gossiping on the phone. Now, the irony here is that Gertrude is gossiping and referencing something that Beulah told her, and then she gets gossiped about at the end by Beulah. So this kind of gossip with Beulah creates this almost circular structure to this chapter and makes it almost self-contained, because it starts off with her gossiping and it ends with her gossiping. Okay. Now, Beulah, we see that she's evidently up to her old tricks, gossiping about people. So she barged in on Marigold in her own room. On page 211, no one just goes into someone else's room for no reason. She was clearly looking to snoop. And we also see that she selected a chair in the corner for prime view, so she just likes to spy on people. It's something that she just likes to do, which is clearly very ironic later on because she goes blind. Rosalie Ham likens what Una Pleasance sewed to something that you would see at the Rockmans of Burke Street on page 212. So here she's creating this kind of contrast between Paris and Burke Street, where we're clearly supposed to see Tilly as more sophisticated because she is associated with Paris, whereas Una is associated with Burke Street. Now on page 213, we see Elsbeth kind of encapsulated in this one quote where she says, "Shut up, you stupid grocer's girl," as Gertrude cries out in pain because she is giving birth. So she's loud, she's self-centered, she's hypocritical, and she needs to be the center of attention, which is really highlighted in the fact that she dresses to impress the other townswomen, or rather to incite their envy. And we see that when the women go to Tilly looking for clothes that they can wear to kind of to dress better than Elsbeth. Okay, now side note on chapter 22, Una Pleasance is taking up space at the Pettyman residence, right? And as we discussed earlier in the case of Gertrude moving into the Beaumont residence, space in this novel is an indicator of power, and also with a space comes a role, right? So here Una Pleasance is displacing the space that Marigold otherwise occupied, and she literally has an affair with Evan. So we see that there, that her taking up space in their residence is meant to symbolize the fact that she's now taken over one aspect of Marigold's role in her marriage. Now, in the Crucible, we don't really have a direct parallel to this, and that's actually something that you can say in your essays, because they don't have a direct parallel. But when the judges barge into the homes of the people, they invade the space and the privacy of the people. So it's almost as if their intrusion is quite literally encapsulated in the fact that they enter the proctor's home. Leslie's wig is snatched. His toupee, gets snatched off of his head. His edges are snatched. He's bald on page 114 because he faints at the sight of Gertrude giving birth. And that's apt imagery for impotence, because remember, he cannot sleep with Mona. It's strongly implied that it's because he's homosexual, but he claims that it's because he's impotent. Now, I recently found out by watching Kath and Kim that apparently I'm not the first person to say homosexual, like homosexual, just for comedic effect, which is a real hard hit to my self-confidence. I'm like, wow, I'm not as original as I thought. But, I'll get over it. Okay. Now let's continue. We see at the end of the chapter that Mr. Almanac is standing in distant attendance. And that's this, it's there to highlight the further separation of masculine and feminine, because he's unable to help anyway when it comes to the happenings of the feminine sphere. He's like this, he's supposed to give us this image of a man who only really exercises power in any productive way in the male sphere rather than the feminine. Okay. She's only been married. And then at the very end of page 214, we see Beulah say she's only been married 8 months about Gertrude. So we get that circular structure again, and we're encouraged not to believe anything Beulah says, because we know for a fact that while she is insinuating that Felicity Joy was conceived out of wedlock, Gertrude was a virgin until after she was married. Okay, so the Crucible only ever really utilizes a linear structure, but note that here it's a chronologically linear structure. That means time is still passing in a linear fashion. There's no flashbacks, but thematically it ties back to the start of the chapter, and it's to convey meaning. It's to show us how unreliable Beulah is and why she shouldn't be trusted. So it's chronologically linear, but it's thematically circular, and that's something that's important to note in your work. You shouldn't just say circular in this case. If you want to reference it, you have to say that it's chronologically linear but thematically circular. Okay, so thanks for watching, and I hope you guys learned something. I'll see you guys next time.